I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and happy Valentine's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Wow, see? Fast forward, yeah, happy Groundhog's Day. No, happy St. Patrick's Day. I see we have some, a good 3/5 clad in green tonight. Do I have any opening public comment from the board this evening?
I just want to mention one thing. Remember when the fire chief came in and told us how you could get burning permits online? I went home and did it right away, and this weekend we had unshoveled some of our wood from the microburst, and so we wanted to have a fire, and it was very simple. You just had to plug in the information online, and in a minute you had your burning permit for the day, complete with instructions, and it came back with the address to make sure that they had the right address where you were going to be burning. It was very simple. I really encourage people to get a burning permit that way, and it lasts from January 15th to May 1st. And you just have to call in and put in your permit number anytime you want to burn. And I know with all of the brush from the microburst, lots of people will be needing to do that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I received an email from a citizen in town about their application to Unitil to connect their proposed solar system. And they were told by Unitil that where they live, the connection could possibly cause backfeeding into the transmission system, and that a study would need to be performed to identify any protection or controls, and the cost of the study would exceed $10,000 and is expected to identify required system upgrades of $60,000 to $80,000 or more, which of course then makes the size they were looking for not feasible. And so my concern on that is what's going to happen with other properties in town. The school project that we're talking about, at some point adding solar to that, I think this is something that we need to look into. I'm going to give this to the town manager and ask to be forwarded to the Green Committee for their review on that.
Do you know the size of the system that was being installed?
It's a typical colonial house, so
it's a residential system?
I found out about this yesterday because I was talking to one of the solar companies, and I know the solar company whose customer this is, who said he had never heard of a residential one being denied. He didn't tell me the details as you did about why it is, but I think at some point we should ask the Green Energy Commission, the committee, to contact Unitil and get a clarification, because obviously this came before construction, so the homeowner hasn't expended any money, but we want, certainly, I certainly as one person want people to be afforded every ability they can to take advantage of solar. I have personally, I know several people in town have, in fact many people in town have. And for a residential rooftop installation, I didn't know that there was such a thing that you could be denied.
I didn't either.
And I know that nationwide, a lot of the solar, as a result of the solar installation, many utilities are trying to get a fee, a large fee from people installing the property. So this may be part of that, and I don't know if it's because of the street they're on and the wires that are on that. I know that when they looked at Chase Road and Pleasant Street, the question was, were they going to have to upgrade the transmission lines there?
But those were commercial projects, and those required three-phase wiring to be nearby. A residential is just hooked into your residential wiring.
Right.
So unless this is a very old house with a very antiquated, knob and tube wiring system, it would be hard to believe.
Right.
I mean, there may be reasons. I don't want to second guess, but we should check. Are you allowed? Do you know, or are you allowed to say what street it's on?
It's on Highland Street.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, this is really disturbing. I mean, I know many people that are looking at solar and want to do residential projects, and so I don't want this to continue to happening, and I certainly don't want people to expend the money and then find out that they can't
Right.
connect.
Well, you won't. That's not the way. You can't
You
be in
can't.
that position because the company, if you deal with a reputable company, they will check.
Okay.
Before, they need the permit, they need the interconnect agreement before they start the project.
Okay.
So you can't be
Okay.
left like that unless you're dealing with somebody who's
Fly
not a
by night.
reputable company and
Right.
they're building the project before they get the agreement, which you should never do for this reason.
Right.
But it'd be interesting to note if this house or this residence or the wiring on this particular part of the street has anything unique to it, because like I said, I just thought any residential,
Right.
it's not a large system, and, you know, there are shut-offs on solar system that automatically, when you lose power, trigger any back feed into the
Well, and
unit.
the concern is that they're talking about the substation. They're not talking about the house or the wires, that may be part of that, but they're actually talking about the substation, and I'm not sure where the substation is for Island Street.
Okay.
There's one off of Mass Ave, there's some other places in town, but if that's the case, that could affect just about everyone.
Yeah, at some point, okay. Yeah, I would agree that we should probably send that to the Green Energy Commission. Any other public comments from the board? A couple of announcements. First, an alert for anybody who is an abutter or environs of the middle school, high school building. They were to be doing a concrete pour on the one building called Zone A or Building A that's already in undercover at the, and that concrete pour is for the second floor. In order to do that, they have to do that as one continuous pour, and that means it will start at the normal time during the day, but it will last longer than normal construction hours for that one day only. Because of the high winds that you're seeing now that are predicted to go into Wednesday, they have decided to postpone that to a date. They have not confirmed the date with Shawmut and the construction company and all the concrete vendors. But I wanted to let people know that it's coming, and it is likely that people will be on site, although trucks will be done generally by the end of the business day, maybe, 5, maybe to 6 o'clock, but there will be people there till about 11 proposed that night. But more details will follow. I just want people to know that that is coming, and it is for that building alone that's undercover. It will have to happen to the other buildings, but it'll happen at different times, and we will alert everybody to when that's going to happen, just so they don't think, oh, what's going on at the site, is anything wrong?
It's the
or-
second floor, has a concrete.
Right. So I will keep you posted on that. Number 2 is, again, next Friday, March 27th, is the Are You Smarter Than Our Sixth Graders again. The fundraiser for the Boys and Girls Club of Lunenburg. We have all the teams filled, so now we're looking for audience members, and we're still accepting sponsorships for questions and sixth graders and everything. And more importantly, we just want audience members, because it's really a lot of fun, and it's for a great cause. And it won't be live telecast. It will be recorded for future telecast, but it'd be nice to have a lot of excitement in the building. There will be refreshments at an intermission in the middle of the evening. Doors open at 6 p.m. and the games start at 6:30 p.m. And that's at the Lunenburg High School Auditorium next Friday, the 27th. And lastly, I want to report that, thank everybody, first of all, who came out to the town caucus last night at Turkey Hill Middle School. And I want to thank people who are nominated and all the people who nominated them. And our own Mrs. Bertram was nominated for re-election, so congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And thank you for running. That was the good part of the evening. The disappointing part of the evening is out of 20 openings, 10 were unfilled for candidates of any kind. I don't know what to say except some of the basics, is that in large part, not only this town, but towns and even the cities across the Commonwealth rely on volunteer elected and appointed boards to do the work of the town. they have important positions. Many people on this board have held other positions on other boards. Those boards and those committees and those commissions make very important decisions. This year alone were 2 public hearings that were incredibly well attended, one by the zoning board, one by the planning board, that were very critical decisions for the residents and the people in the areas around the projects who were heard. And without those boards being filled and without people listening and providing testimony and weighing it and coming up with decisions, the work of the town can't get done. And on a more positive side, as somebody who's served in town for over 12 years in some capacity on appointed and elected boards, it is very rewarding. Yes, there's a lot of work, and some boards and some committees have a lot more work than others. They're not all even in work, which is good, because not everybody has that kind of time. But it is very rewarding that you get to guide the town. The community goes in the direction that the people put the energy in to take it to go. And so I encourage people to come forward and run for these. I will read off the openings that were unfilled last night. 1 member of the Board of Health for 3 years. 1 member of the Board of Assessors for 3 years. 2 members of the Sewer Commissioner, each for 3 years. 1 member of the Park Commissioners for 3 years. 1 Park Commissioner for 1 year. 1 Library Trustee for 3 years. 1 Library Trustee for 1 year. 1 Planning Board member for 2 years. And 1 Planning Board member for 1 year. The off years that you hear on some of these is filling somebody who's resigned or could no longer continue the job for various reasons, but can no longer be on the board or committee, and that's why there are some odd number of years to fill in vacancies of people who have left an unfilled term. But all these are very important jobs, and they're all important to the running of the town. And so I encourage people to take out nomination papers. You can get them at the town clerk. And to be on the ballot, you will have to have 41 signatures that are verified by the town clerk and return to her on appropriate sheets. She will give you instructions, or her office will give you instructions. And they have to be returned by March 26th. So that is next Thursday by 4 p.m. So again, I encourage people to do it. There are still openings of appointments. While I'm talking about openings, we have opening on the Conservation Commission, 2 openings on the Public Access Cable Committee. We have
Finance.
1 on the Finance. How many on Historic? Don't we have a Historical Commission? Thought we had 1, but maybe not.
I think we filled that.
We filled that one, okay. So these are another 4 positions that we need people for. So again, I encourage people to do it. I realize everybody's busy. Some of them don't take a whole lot of time, some take more time than others. So, again, thank you for indulging me.
Oh, mention the volunteer appreciation.
Yes, in 2 weeks from tonight. So that will be, yes, if you put your name in, we'll appreciate you, not only volunteers, but the people volunteering to volunteer. And that will be at the Senior Center, March 31st, starting at 6:30 p.m. So again, we don't have normally, because it's the last Tuesday of the month, we don't have a regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting, so that is when we're having it. It got postponed because of oodles of snow in the past 2 months, so I encourage everybody to be there. If you are a volunteer, we want to show our appreciation. If you're interested in volunteering, it's a good time to meet the volunteers. If you're a resident, you had a good experience with a board or a member, please come and show your appreciation for the people doing it. So encourage everybody to come to that. Thank you. And thank you for reminding me, Mrs. Long. Okay, 7:10, one-day liquor license. Oh, any public comment from the public first? No. Okay, so now, a one-day liquor license, wine and malt only, for Platinum Productions, Inc.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank
If
you
you
for
would
your
introduce
time.
yourself?
My name's Katie. I am the owner of Quality Time Catering out of Fitchburg. I'm actually the one the event is being held at Platinum Productions, and I'll be the caterer. So I will be the one serving.
Okay, so the event is from 4:30 to 6:30 PM for 50 to 70 people. And it is for profit. We have okay. You are insured. You have, now people serving this will be tips certified?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Liability insurance. Yep, now I got to the tips part. Any questions for the applicant?
What kind of business is Platinum Productions?
They're a entertainment company with DJs, lighting, things like that. So they're looking to, the event is a business after hours for the chamber. So typically, different members within will hold like a business after hours so that other members can see what they do as a business. So that's the gist.
Okay. And you are, did you sign this? Is this your signature?
Yes,
You're
I'm
the
Catherine
officer, okay.
Marsh, yes.
All right,
Guess, Mr. Chairman, I do have one question.
yes.
Have we given one-day licenses to somebody that's not the owner or the renter of the property? I'm not opposed to this, but since we give, this is to the, I know there's permission given
Yeah.
by the Platinum Productions. I don't know if they own the property or not. I just didn't know whether we gave it to a catering company as opposed to the,
Well, the license has to be issued to the person who is going to be serving the alcohol. I think this is probably the first time you've seen something like this, because typically we do these one-day licenses. We do them for the North Leominster Rod and Gun. They host the event. They have the tip certified people.
Okay.
So it looks different than what you've seen, but only because you haven't had this circumstance before.
But this is a commercial, I mean, this is the one thing that's important, because we have not entertained them on private property before. This is residential property. Because there was one we denied that somebody wanted to do one for like weddings or something.
Right.
But this is commercial.
Right, and
business.
you've approved them for at commercial
right.
businesses.
That's what I'm
before.
saying, at
Yeah.
commercial business. I know that in the past, we had requests for ones at residential areas, private properties, for special events, and we said, well, we can't do that. But I don't have any problem with this one. Anybody else? I'd entertain a motion on the request for the one-day wine and malt license.
I would make a motion to approve the one-day sale of alcoholic wine and malt to Kelm's Food Service, doing business as a Quality Time Catering, for an event to be held at Platinum Productions on March 26th.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Does she have to pick up this
Tomorrow, I believe.
tomorrow? Okay.
Thank you.
This one's for everybody? Wow. This is the St. Patrick's Day form.
Your favorite color, Tom?
Yeah, that's why I'm passing it quickly.
at least our fire trucks are not that color.
Yeah. Thank God. Okay. Current business number 1, transfer the farmer's market charge to the Agricultural Commission. Would you like to open?
I would like to open. So several months ago, the Agricultural Commission came to you and said that it would like to assume the responsibility of the farmers market. The board agreed at that time that it was the intent of the board to transfer the farmers market to the Agricultural Commission once it had been established. You had asked that I contact the Board of Health and ask them if they would agree, because the Board of Health has either actively or passively been approving the farmers market for the last several years. The Board of Health, at one of their recent meetings, took up this issue. Selectman Ebersol, I believe, was in attendance at that meeting. The results of the board's deliberation were relayed to me via the chair. I've talked to the chair a couple of times. I called him again today just because I wanted to confirm what he had to say. So according to the chair of the Board of Health, there's no authority under Mass General Law to regulate the farmers market in its entirety. But there are pieces of a farmers market that can be regulated, such as the sale of prepared foods. That's something that needs to be regulated by the Board of Health. He also pointed out that the existing farmers market is run by a private individual. It's not a town entity, so he doesn't believe, or the Board of Health doesn't believe, that the Board of Selectmen could transfer that to the Agricultural Commission. I think the Board of Selectmen certainly could establish a town farmers market and have that overseen by the Agricultural Commission. And that seems to be the best way to move forward, that you, either by policy or if you want to put forward an amendment to the existing bylaw, I think you could do that. But I think that's probably the way to go, that we establish an official town-sponsored farmers market and have that overseen by the Agricultural Commission.
How does the Agricultural Commission feel about that?
Jeff?
Dr. Stage right?
I'm Jeff Mendoza, Agricultural Commission Chairman. As I've stated before, our primary concern is to turn the farmers market into something that's more inclusive of residents of town. We felt that the way that it's currently being run, a lot of people have approached us and said that they're being excluded. As far as how this transfer happens, whether it's creating a new entity or taking the existing one and transferring it to us, I think we would just welcome an opportunity to move forward with it, whichever way the Board of Selectmen feels is appropriate. Like I said, one way or the other doesn't really matter to us. The way I see it, and the way that, from talking to other commission members, we feel that we've seen a dwindling of the market, and as it existed at the end of last season, there were 3 vendors, and at this point it's almost non-existent as it is now. So whether we are given the authority to take what is left of it and try to rebuild that, or we're given a new starting point, I think either way we can work with either.
You have no preference?
Not particularly. It may be easier to start from scratch.
Yeah.
And one of the things I have been invited, one of the biggest markets around here is the Westminster market, and their Agricultural Commission oversees that market. And I personally like the way that they have everything set up. There's a jury process for disputes that involve, there's actually townspeople who are not directly affiliated, and it seems to offer a very fair solution, to anything that comes up. I had been invited by one of their members when the time was appropriate to go and attend one of their meetings, and they would put us on the agenda and give us some guidance. So we were thinking of doing that. So if you created a completely new entity, that might give us You know, I could talk to some of the local farmers markets and managers and agricultural commissions, and it may be easier to go from that point, you know, and just start from scratch. But we are a pretty flexible bunch, you know, being not me, but being mainly farmers. I mean, these folks roll with, you know, a lot, and so whatever the board thinks is best, we would be behind. My feeling is it might be easier to start with something new.
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Bertram?
So we had previously granted the permission to have a farmer's market, and according to, you know, this memo, that was to a private individual, it's not a town entity. I don't have a problem establishing a new policy and you know, having you guys start from scratch, but do we need to revoke the prior permission granted? So that's question one. And then the second question is, you just mentioned Westminster and that they have rules and regulations and a procedure established. I would like to get an understanding of what type of guidelines the Agricultural Commission would like to see the market operate under. You know, before it's implemented, I'd like to have an understanding of those rules and regulations. But I certainly don't have a problem establishing a new policy if that's the route to go. And I absolutely support the market, and I'm excited to think that, you know, we might get some life back into it and get some more participants. But I don't want to leave a form or permission hanging out, you know, that we said, yes, you can use this property, yes, you can have a farmer's market, and then grant it to the Agricultural Commission subsequent to that. So how do we address that issue? Because we did formally grant permission prior.
You did, but I think you granted it for a year at a time.
Right.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
what
it's
I was going to
annually.
say. We did not do it in perpetuity.
Have we been, but I don't know that we have been have we been revisiting this yearly? Because I don't think we have.
You did, I think, the first 2 years, and then it went to the Board of Health.
Okay.
The Board of Health to approve, and the Board of Health acknowledges that it does not have any jurisdiction over the farmer's market.
So I think as a matter of courtesy, since this is the intent, I believe, of the board, is to allow the operation of the farmer's market under the supervision of the Agricultural Commission, certainly a letter to the individual who permission was granted prior should be sent informing them of the board's decision, and that, you know, that permission
Makes
is
sense.
not, you know,
would
in
agree.
effect.
And I think, just quickly looking at the current bylaw for Agriculture Commission, it states the commission develop a work plan, and they list certain activities, but not limited to, encouraging agriculture. And then at the end, it says, the Agricultural Commission will administer the right to farm bylaw and will hold additional responsibilities as charged by the Board of Selectmen. So I think we have the authority to do that, and I would echo Mrs. Bertram's recommendation that we send the letter regarding the prior, and thank for the service before that.
So I guess the question becomes just one of cleanness and clarity. Do we just add it to that bylaw instead of? I agree with you that the wording certainly gives us the authority to do it, and I don't for 1 minute disagree with that, and that we have the ability to do that right now. The problem is always the trail of what people are left with after the 5 of us are no longer on the board years from now.
I mean, we certainly can, in the first section, before and pursuing all initiatives, we could say to oversee, run, and/or operate a farmer's market in the town of Lunenburg.
Where do you want to put that?
Before the last clause, where it says, in the first paragraph, section 1, before and pursuing all initiatives, I would just add another clause saying,
Okay.
To oversee.
to oversee, operate, or run.
And regulate, whatever, yeah.
Because we want to allow them to, if they oversee it, they don't necessarily have to do it themselves, or they could operate it.
So if I hear us correctly, we're in agreement that we want to authorize a farmer's market that's overseen by the Agricultural Commission, but the question at hand is whether we do that by policy or by a bylaw change. And if I understand it correctly, the bylaw change would require a town meeting vote.
Right.
A warrant article.
Right.
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 So is that where
I would say it's the cleanest. I mean, anybody
Okay.
can point to it and say, yeah, that's where it was added.
Yep.
And it's also timely, we can get
Right,
it
and we
this
can
year.
do it,
Right.
so.
That sounds very sensible.
In the
to me.
interim, what I would suggest or recommend, or ask, is that you would, since you have mentioned Westminster's Farmers Market several times, mentioned it tonight, and then your previous time you came before the board, if you can get a copy of what regulations they're using, and, propose, or just submit them so we can review. I mean, it is my intention that once you have authority over the farmers market, that is, your commission would be the ones regulating it. But it'd be nice to know where we're starting from, at least.
We have actually adopted, at our meetings, we have a set of regulations or guidelines that we had come up with based on part.
We have that listed here, yeah. We have that listed in our,
What you presented the last
we
time.
have.
presented to
Okay.
us as submitted here, yeah.
And that basically was somewhere between, the Shirley market, although smaller, is it's a very positive and very successful smaller market. And their regulations are very, very brief. And
Simple.
we felt that those were a little too open, and that maybe Westminster's were too, there was a lot in there. And so what we came up with was between them. I can easily provide both sets of those, or I can get the Westminster ones to you also.
Yeah, it would be good just to see them, and.
Like I
and
said, they
again,
have a
becau-
good setup for how, if disputes arise, there's a whole jury that I sort of like the idea of,
Right, I mean, you have to put it somewhere between, a booklet, which nobody's going to read, and, 3 sentences that you can't enforce very much. I mean, we really want to be responsible and make it open at the same time. And
Exactly.
a very important point, as brought up by the chair of the Board of Health, and as I mentioned when you were here last time, is that, how people who sell food of any kind, whether it's agricultural, processed food, as defined, I don't know if you received what the town manager submitted to us tonight, but basically it was from the state.
Yeah.
Oh, you provided it to us, okay. So then,
That was
so then you know
actually-
that. I mean, as long as in the regulations, it makes appropriate reference to when and for what the vendors have to go to the Board of Health and get licenses and approval
Right.
from them.
I mean, generally, it seems that, all the appropriate Board of Health licenses have to be in place, especially when it comes to the sale of meat. If someone wanted to do, there's quite a bit about shellfish. I mean,
Yes.
I don't think that's really something here, but in
Never
the
know.
town of Fairhaven.
That's right, you never
I mean,
know, that's right.
Yeah, you never do if David Leet from Conrad's was interested.
But there you
Right,
go.
exactly.
There is, and that's the sort of person that we would probably reach out to, try to bring in, as much as you can. So the Board of Health obviously will be very involved, especially if we can grow this into something bigger. So the bigger it gets, the more they would be involved with us. So
I would recommend that we adopt a policy for this year and go for the bylaw, because the bylaw is approved at town meeting, and then the town clerk has to submit it to the Attorney General's office, and they have, I believe, up to 90 days to approve it. That may turn into the season.
Right.
So
Right.
I would recommend that we authorize it as a policy, as well as go forward with the bylaw.
As an additional charge, you mean, under
Right.
the current bylaw? That's fine. I'm fine with that.
yeah, because it has been starting in June, and
So
it's-
what
it's-
Mr. Ebersol said is important, because the Attorney General generally returns our town warrants with approvals or not within 30 to 45 days, I think. But I think mostly with 30.
It's great to have such models from Shirley and Westminster, really pretty contrasting, but pretty also good.
And then there's other, I attended a really large market in North Carolina. I tried to escape winter and failed. I went down there for the snow and 0-degree weather that they had. But that farmer's market, and the sort of support it gets, granted it's in Durham, so it's in the city, and it's, further south, so the growing season's much longer. But, I do try to attend a lot of them to try to see, where Lunenburg can fit, in the scheme of all this. And just like, listening to you talk about solar, now's the time for that. I feel very strongly that now is the time to either, the farmer's market is either going to make it now or it isn't. And if it doesn't make it now, then maybe this isn't the right place for it. But now seems to be the time to give it, a real effort. So.
Okay, so first I will start with entertaining a motion about the policy of giving the charge of running the farmer's market under the existing bylaw, as allowed by the bylaw, and to the Board of Selectmen, to the Agricultural Commission.
I would make a motion that we approve the Agriculture Commission to run this year's farmers market or oversee it as authorized under Article 29 of the town bylaws.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. So that takes care of that. Now, the action item about the language, is that something your office?
Bylaw
Yeah.
amendment? Yeah, I've got it.
Okay, so we will have that before us, and it'll be on the town warrant for this annual town meeting.
Do you want to
Sounds good.
take a motion to submit that warrant article?
I would move that we would submit the language as previously described to the amending the Agricultural Commission's charge to authorize the operating or overseeing of the farmers market as another one of their charges.
Second.
Powers.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. So,
Do you want a motion to revoke the authorization?
I thought that was an annual. Did we?
well, hold on. First of all, yes.
Speak into the microphone. So my question is, if you wanted to accept a motion to authorize sending the letter to revoke any authority to use the property. You asked me earlier
To the existing farmer's
Yeah.
market manager.
Yes.
Yes.
I would so move.
Second.
Again, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Again, I want to, please make the letter note that we thank her for running this. And this is not any reflection on the abilities that she has done, but I think it just is better suited for a commission that didn't even exist when we authorized her to run the farmer's market, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just have one question for Jeff. Do you guys have a website? Are you interested in having a page on the town website? Because I've heard Matt Allison at some of the planning board meetings mention that you guys are interested in having a place on the town website.
We actually are, and it's on our agenda for Thursday night's meeting.
Okay.
We've discussed it. I have just a couple questions for the other commission members,
Okay.
and then I'm going to talk to Steve about
Okay.
getting that
Okay.
site up.
Okay.
And then from there, I was thinking of sort of, I don't know, there's a member of the community attended one of our meetings and was very vocal about all the things that she suggested we ought to do in the virtual world. And I've been trying to talk to her husband, who I know, to see if she would take that on so that we could have someone to run a Facebook page and whatever else. I'm not sure if any of the commission members really, the farmers especially going into the season, have the time to take on something like that. And I thought it would be good for someone who's interested in that and, well-versed in it to take that over. So we are looking to do that in conjunction also, which hopefully would make it easier for people in the community to get involved in this, so.
Well, at the very least, you should have a
Right.
section as a, duly created commission in town. You should at least have a page that has who the
Right.
members are,
Right, and if you
like
do
any
it,
other committee or commission, so.
right. and
Like I
if you-
said, I just had a little bit to go over with the commission members at Thursday's meeting, and then we were going to,
And if you do adopt regulations, I do think that they should be available on the website so that
Exactly.
people that are interested can look at them. So, certainly expanding that is great, but at a minimum, I'd like to see the basic information.
yeah, we, that's one of the biggest complaints that we've received, from people in town that want to be part of the farmers market, or who had wanted to be, was that they weren't able to easily access the regulations. Westminster's are, again, they're posted on their farmers market website, and it's really easy.
As will yours. I foresee it.
Yeah.
We will get there.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, if I could just thank you folks, and Carrie especially, for all the help with this, and I'd like to thank the Board of Health too, like you said, for the current manager, for all she's done so far, and obviously the relationship will continue with the Board of Health in one way or another, so
Excellent.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2, notification to Comcast of the start of formal license renewal proceedings.
So there is a letter in your packet that was drafted by Town Council in response to Comcast's letter notifying us that it would like to begin the renewal process for the existing license. The letter states, pursuant to the provisions of 47 U.S.C. Section 546A, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Lunenburg, Mass. hereby notifies you that it intends to commence cable television license renewal proceedings. These proceedings will consist of a compliance audit, ascertainment, and will include at least one public hearing. We will notify you when we have selected a date for the hearing and when we are ready to begin the negotiations for the renewal license hearings. This letter meets the requirements under the law for commencing the process within 6 months of receipt of that letter. At your last meeting, you appointed a cable advisory committee consisting of 3 members of this board and 2 members of the Public Access Cable Committee. We've set the first meeting for April 14th. We will be working with attorney Bill Hewig at Copeland and Page. He is the same attorney that worked with the Cable Advisory Committee to negotiate the license 10 years ago. This is his primary practice at Copeland and Page, so I think we will be well served by working with him.
Any questions about this? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion that we approve the notification letter to be sent to Comcast.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, everybody's annual favorite, the Mosquito Control Project, the dreaded Form SRB3.
So this is a request for you to authorize the chair of the Board of Health to submit Form SRB3 declaring support or no support for the mosquito control funding budget for fiscal 2016.
I had a question about our assessment. How is it determined what we will be assessed?
It is, let me see if I can tell from here. I want to say it is a combination of land area and equalized value. It's a formula that they use, and I know it does, if you look at it, it looks like our assessment is pretty high in comparison to some other communities, but the land area is taken into account in the apportionment of the assessment.
So you think it probably doesn't have anything to do with how much of the service you use?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And this is something they do. They have target areas that they will address, but this is an interesting service. Any resident of town can go in and make application online to request spraying of their property, and they will come out and spray individually. It's It's probably the only state service that you can actually get that kind of response.
Right, and they don't only spray, they come out and they'll do an assessment of your property, and for example, if you have wetlands on your property, they'll actually do testing, and they'll do larviciding, and they'll actually walk around your property and tell you areas that you have stagnant water, things that you can do to stop mosquito breeding, and, I've used it, and it's really a great service. I mean, they will come out and look at your whole property and tell you things that you should be doing and ways you can improve, or, the amount of mosquitoes on your property naturally, so.
I love that they'll pick up old tires.
They will, yeah.
You just call them up and leave them on the curb, and they come by. I saw some old tires on somebody's property, and I had a copy of the letter, and I gave it to the guy, and they were gone the next week.
Because those are
Breeding grounds.
Yeah, big breeding grounds. It's some towns, communities around us aren't listed. You don't necessarily have to belong if you don't want to?
They do not, if they're not members, they don't receive service.
Right, you can opt out.
Okay.
I would move that we approve and show our support for mosquito control budget.
I would second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Who is it, clerk? Oh, it's for you? Okay. All right, approve the schedule for additional MART public transportation. Is this you, Mrs. Luck?
Yes, it is.
All right, you're on.
Carrie and I met with the representatives from MART, and we determined that MART is going to provide a van to go to 3 different locations to get to the 6:30 a.m. train at the intermodal. Get there probably at 6:25, so they have a few minutes to spare. And in the evening, pick up at the 7 p.m. train and drop off, as not necessarily go to all the 3 locations, but go to any place where there are people on the train. If they won't go to Whalum if nobody's going to Whalum. And they also recommended that for the evening train, if there was the possibility it might be late, it's a good idea for you to call the MART number to let them know you're on the train, because they'll wait for a half an hour if the train's late. So the early morning and the late afternoon van will just happen. And then we've also requested service Monday through Friday in a loop in the afternoon from more or less like 1 to 5. And, they'll have to run it a little bit to tweak exactly what the times will be. And they guarantee that it's not going to cost us a dime, certainly in this fiscal year, because of the money we have that is going toward the MBTA will be used before they would charge us anything, and we've got the whole year's worth, according to Mo, of the MBTA funds. Okay. And we should, in a month or so...
Whole year's worth, meaning from when to when? Is this calendar year, fiscal year?
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year.
So we have until July 1st, or we have all of next fiscal year?
No, until July 1st, we can use the roughly 36,000 for the that we're assessed for the MBTA.
Okay.
And then starting the next fiscal year, we'll have, again, 36,000.
Okay.
But it's nice to start off with a little bit extra, because they assume you will generate some revenue, and they're thinking when it's a new service, it's going to be less revenue till you can get it publicized and get people used to using it. So it'll take us a while to generate revenue. And they're going to tally up the number of riders, and once a month let us know exactly how many riders are on this service, so that when we approach the next fiscal year, we can evaluate what the usage has been and structure what we want to go forward into the next fiscal year. We're hoping that, doing it from 1 to 5, we'll have some kids who want to go to Walmart or over to Whalum, maybe they'll do that instead of taking the school bus, just.
Right.
if they live over in that area.
Well,
We were hoping that we could get something sent out to advertise it with the warrant that goes out, you know.
but we'll definitely want to advertise it. I first want to say thank you to Mrs. Luck for all the work she put into meeting with Mart and getting them at the table with us. Not that we had to coerce them, but it was important to reach out, which we haven't really done in a long time, to really provide additional service to underserved areas in the town, namely Town Center and the Whalum District, and also to connect with other MART system buses. So now from Town Center, you can get down all the way to Whitney Field if you would like, because you can connect with the bus down in Whalum. You can get to the intermodal station. I think the early one and the late one was something that I think this board worked hard to, with MART, to satisfy needs of people who have to go to Boston and take commuter rail, whether it's every day or just occasionally, that they have that option. I think it would really serve the residents of Lunenburg. Is there a way, I know we talked about it at our meeting with them, but is there a way to gauge what the ridership is from Lunenburg? Is there any way for them to
Well, they're going to
determine that?
actually tally for us.
They will.
The driver's going to tally.
Okay, excellent.
And once a month, they're going to give us a report on exactly how many people they're picking up and dropping off.
So we should make sure that once we have these schedules printed and whatever advertisement we're doing, we see some things here that, these samples, or are these things they
Yeah,
want
Joe
to do?
McLaughlin made these up for us, actually. These are four different ideas that she had, and that I thought we should talk about
So
at
if we
some
can
point.
send them to the library, to the senior center, the Eagle House Senior Center, put them in places in Town Hall, if we can, make some advertisement or notice of this in the warrant mailing, or maybe in the back of the warrant, something.
That's what I was thinking, the back page of the warrant.
Because we really,
cover.
it's an important service that I think people need to know about in order to take, otherwise they're never going to know. And
The other thing would be if we can get some volunteers to go to the 6:30 a.m. train, because I'm in Fitchburg, and the 7:02 that comes back, as a way of, they may be driving there, and maybe they won't have to drive there. We actually hand out flyers or something
Oh, that's a
like
good
that.
idea.
That's a great idea.
The only question I have on the daily route from 1 to 5, we say CVS Whalum as part of one of the loop stops. I thought the MART bus only went up Summer Street and didn't come to CVS Whalum.
It's not the MART bus, it's a van.
No, but we were talking about trying to connect to Whitney Field.
Right.
And that
Oh, yeah.
it would tie to that line.
yeah, I think that's
So-
where it did say they would tie.
But it would have to come from Summer Street up to CVS, because if people get dropped off at CVS, they then have to get down to Summer Street to pick up the.
Yeah, there's a bus on
transportation
Summer
to
Street.
Yeah, but that's a long way to get.
No, but there was a bus on Route 13 as well.
We don't have the connection, the easy connection to Whitney Field. We don't have that piece
Oh, we don't?
yet. We
Okay,
don't have
okay.
that.
No.
Because we had talked about the fact that there's
No shelter?
There's no shelter at
King's Corner?
King's Corner, right.
Oh, there would be.
So I think that's maybe phase 2.
All right. Well, that's one we will have to work toward then.
Yeah, 'cause it would be great to be able to get to Whitney Field.
To Whitney Field, I
Right.
think is a big piece.
And we also,
Total.
if we let PAC know, and they can run it on the
Right.
Just a quick question, the 702 into intermodal, what time does that leave North Station? Do you know?
I think it's 5:30, right?
5:30?
Yeah, I think that's right. That's when we looked at.
There was a 4:30 that was more of an express, but we thought that was too early.
We took
Yeah.
the two, they said there were two of the most,
Used.
the most used rush hour trains, both in the morning, and we chose the earliest one in the morning and the latest one at night, so you could.
I think this is great.
Yeah,
It's a great step. I think the fact of being able to transfer the MBTA money to this, we're not having to deal with financial impact, and let's try it out and see how it works. And I know that Mart said that if it didn't work out, we could cancel with a reasonable notice.
And
Yep.
we can also change it.
I'm right. Let's hope that it's popular enough that we just have to modify it.
That's
Right.
right.
And, you can buy the ticket right on the bus, at the van. You don't need to get it ahead of time.
Right.
You can get them at the intermodal. They said there's a possibility to sell tickets in town, but it's smarter to wait to see how much usage you get.
Yep.
And once they pay their $1.50, they can transfer and go all around. So it's really just $1.50. And you can get a Charlie card and have it put on the Charlie card.
Right.
So it can be very convenient.
Well, and as people, when is it looking to be put into place?
They could do it as early as April 6th. So it's kind of up to us when we want to pull the trigger.
Well, I guess should we take a moment and think about that? Or is this something we want to revisit and think about it and vote on it next week?
Well, next week, it won't be April 6th.
Right.
It'll probably be the next week.
Okay,
Right,
well,
'cause the more we push
fine.
it out, right.
I think we should go with the April 15th, not right away, because I think we do need to do some advertising. It'll certainly be in the Ledger if we can get it with the other places.
So I would like to take action on at least the schedule and agree to go forward with this schedule initially, and.
So make that motion
I would
first.
like to make a motion that we go forward with the schedule as laid out in Phyllis's correspondence.
Great.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, so now implementation.
Yes.
So should I tell Mo we want to start on the 15th? Do you want?
Yeah.
Whatever the next starting day, I don't know, is it incrementally starting
He
days
just said
anytime
Monday.
after the
He said
6th?
Monday's a good day.
On a Monday, okay, so
Start on a Monday.
Yeah,
so
whatever
the
that
6th is a
Monday-
Monday, that would mean the 13th.
13th.
Or the 20th.
All right.
I think, if we can do, this, we have some funds available that will be, need to be expended by July 1st. So I'd like to start earlier, but I would like to see some, advertising so that we get people aware of the program, so that we have people on the bus or on the van. But I think there's no reason not to start on the 13th unless there's
Right,
something.
I think so too, because, it's not like it's going to cost us more to start on the 13th than it
Right.
would on the 20th.
Right.
So why not? And even if, nobody rides it first, we can go to the train station and pass out flyers. We can
So,
I think
start advertising
Phyllis
it.
will be on the bus.
Yes, absolutely.
so that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, since you've taken it this far, are you willing to take it to the advertising, and make sure that, orchestrate the rest of this?
Yeah, sure.
That would be perfect.
I mean, Joe McLaughlin is great, and she's a huge help, so I'm sure that she'll come through.
Yeah, she did a great job on the information you provided tonight. So.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, right, and we could discuss at some point, if you have a preference. I was kind of thinking that the one with the tower, the message is that it's local, as opposed to just people. If you just look at the picture of a woman or a guy, we don't have
No, I
that
think one of the
service.
first two
I
is
think
better.
one of the first two,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
I agree.
great.
I would move that we start the service on April 13th.
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay,
Okay, I'll let them know, and we'll get
April
going.
13th it is. Joe has a first revision to the, to the advertisement.
Actually, that doesn't say April 15th, it says April 2015.
It says April or May, right?
Right.
So. Okay. Number 5, convert Green Community Task Force to a standing committee.
So I
That
went,
sounds like alchemy.
I went back and I didn't find that you actually took a vote to.
No, we didn't.
To have a committee rather than a task force. So I think the first thing would be, if that's what you would like to do, it makes sense for the board to vote. And then the second would be, do you want this to be a bylaw committee? And if so, now is the time to be putting forth a bylaw for the committee.
Well, my initial reaction is I don't know why it would need to be a bylaw committee. It can certainly be a committee under the, standing committee under the Board of Selectmen. That's just me.
Do we have the original charter?
I wasn't able to come across that easily. We will continue looking. We're revamping our filing system in the office, and I know we absolutely put together a charge for them.
Initially.
Initially.
As the task force.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably can come up with it too. I didn't know
Yeah,
it was
and I
needed.
think that Dave Blatt was asking for that to be revised a little, so
Right.
I don't
that's-
think we're ready to say bylaw at this point, because I think we need to look at the charter and have some discussion.
Okay.
And to go with at least a standing committee for this year, and
You're saying the charter, but you mean the...
Charge.
The charge.
Charge,
Okay,
sorry,
okay.
not the
No,
charter,
that's fine.
charge.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so we can do that. I will look for it too, as well as the town manager, so.
You don't have to. We will find it.
I'm just trying to be helpful. I wasn't going to show anybody. All right, I won't look for it.
it'll be a contest to see who gets it first.
My permission to look for it is revoked.
So do we need to take a vote on changing the
Well,
committee,
no,
or do
we-
we
we
want to
should-
wait until we look
Well,
at
we
the
need to
the
change it to
charge?
something that has a charge again.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think just changing the committee with its current charge it won't fit.
Okay.
Because one of the things one of the task force charges was to make sure we're a green community, to make sure that Lunenburg would
which
be,
we are,
which we are, so
right,
therefore their
right.
charge is complete, which is why they need to be changed. Okay, discussion and review of the FY16 budget. Is there anything new that we want to talk about from either the town manager or you? Okay.
I would like to just go through the email that I sent you right after the governor's budget was issued, because we haven't talked about that at a public meeting.
We didn't talk about it at a private meeting either. Just to be clear.
So, as you all know, the governor issued his budget at the beginning of this month, and what he proposed in terms of state aid for the town of Lunenburg is actually quite a bit higher than what I had included in my original recommendation, to the tune of $292,171. So I'd just like to take a minute to go through where that is and propose a suggestion to you. In terms of well, the 292,171 in terms of state aid, and the charges and assessments are outside of that. But the governor's budget proposes an additional $90,810 in Chapter 70, which is education aid, an additional $3,404 in charter tuition reimbursements. The big difference is the governor's budget includes a Smart Growth 40S payment in the same amount that we received this year, which is $183,618. We've talked about this before. The timing on applying, these are funds that you have to apply for, and you apply for them in September of the fiscal year in which the funds are granted. We did apply for the funds in fiscal 15, and we received them in fiscal 15, but not in time for them to be appropriated, and they are funds that need to be appropriated. So what is proposed in the fiscal 16 budget is that we use the payment that we received in fiscal 15 to partially offset the fiscal 16 budget, and I did not include any estimate in 16 for an additional payment. I'm not sure that this will hold up, because this is one of those things that maybe the governor's staff in putting the budget together didn't completely understand how this program works. There are only 2 communities in the state that receive this money. But it's in there right now, and if there is interest in using the funds in fiscal 16, I think that they should be used only with the understanding that if this doesn't materialize, that we're not looking for another funding source to fund this amount, and this amount should only fund either additional capital or non-recurring expenses. And I did ask the superintendent to go through her recommended budget and identify anything that she felt would fall into that category. And she did come up with some things that she's going to discuss with the school committee tomorrow night. I'm going to go to that meeting, and we'll talk about it, and I'll let you know how that goes. Because if we were just to use it in the operating budget, then we're creating a big hole for fiscal 17.
How much of this were you thinking of letting her use?
Well, I'd like to see what she comes up with first. I mean, we have additional choice tuition that we need to deal with too, but I asked her to come up with, up to 100% of that amount.
Oh.
I mean, to identify, and then, we can talk about what gets identified. Under the governor's budget, funding for school lunch is eliminated. That's $7,526. The choice tuition, school choice receiving tuition is lower than what I projected in the amount of $27,913. Unrestricted general government aid or lottery aid is up $33,875. Veterans benefits, which is a reimbursement of the prior year, is up $14,699. Exemptions up $1,736, and libraries down $532. So in total, that's $292,171. And then in terms of the state assessments are higher than what I included in my fiscal 16 recommendation, in the amount of $78,836, and most of that is an increase in the choice tuition assessment. And then in non-appropriated expenditures, cherry sheet, so the cherry sheet charges, this is a summary, the cherry sheet charges that I mentioned are higher by $78,836. The cherry sheet offsets are lower by $35,970. So the net to the non-appropriated categories is an increase in expenditures of $42,866. So the net increase revenue overall is $249,305, and of that, $183,618 is that 40S smart growth, which I think is, definitely not guaranteed at this point in time. So if you take that out, the net increase, $65,687. And, I would point out that half of that is in unrestricted general government aid, which I think should go to fund something other than education. And as I mentioned before, our health insurance renewal was higher by about $35,000. So I'm going to take another look at that and see if we can tighten that up at all. But so just generally speaking, under the governor's budget, we are going to do a little bit better than what we had projected, or substantially better if that 40S does come in and there's a will to use that for some non-recurring expenses.
Now, the 40S money, is that mostly because of Tri-Town?
It is only because of
Only
Tri-Town.
because of Tri-Town.
So it's whatever impacts to the town, not just education?
No, it's just education.
No, it is.
Just education.
It is
Specific.
education.
So when you look at the
Education.
choice tuition assessment, that's probably pretty closely linked to Tri-Town, isn't it? Aren't there a lot of kids who move into Tri-Town that choice to other communities?
Well, the superintendent put in a lot of effort in determining the increase in the choice students, where they're coming from, and the increase is not coming from Tri-Town. The increase is coming from their students going to the Air Shirley district, not living in Tri-Town.
So just spread around the community,
Yeah.
going to Air Shirley?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. And they still haven't done a survey to find out why. These are kids who were never in the Lunenburg system? Is that right?
My understanding is that they're students that moved into town and never tried Lunenburg Public Schools, just stayed with Air Shirley.
That's a little confusing, but to stay with Air Shirley, I mean, if they move from another town, I mean, that's a relatively new regional school. I mean, obviously, prior Shirley students were coming here, so I'm just...
No, only Shirley High School students were coming here for the most part. I mean,
Right.
We had some, I'm sure, that choiced in, but not the
Right,
majority.
so they were in the...
Because they had their own school
so they
district
were,
up to
right, up
8th grade.
to high school.
It would be good to get a better feel for that.
Well, that would be a question for school committee and school department, yeah.
So I'm okay with talking to the school. I'm glad you're doing that because of some of the concept of that, as long as they do understand that additional capital are non-recurring expenses, because if we apply and we don't get it, they're not going to get that money.
Right.
Right.
And I'm assuming that our appropriations will be stated that to some effect, or we have the agreement that that's going to be the case, because we have to, I don't know how we do that.
Well, you
Yeah, I mean, what I was thinking is to do something similar to what we did, I think it was back in fiscal 2012, when we made an additional appropriation to cover higher than usual unemployment costs because we had to do layoffs, and it was a separate line item in the budget. And I would propose, if we do this, that we do something different so it doesn't get buried into the base and we have to explain in fiscal 17 why we're taking that out of the base.
Where did the, I'm sorry, where did the 180 or so that was FY15 end up getting placed against? This is kind of the second chunk. Where did the first chunk get placed?
Well, it is, we're making an appropriation from free cash in that same amount.
Mhm.
And so it's listed in the budget as an available fund, a free cash appropriation under available funds.
It's
Okay.
not allocated to a specific department, it's allocated to the budget.
How?
And is there any thought to restrict that to a non-recurring expense as well, or not necessarily?
Not no, I wasn't thinking that.
Okay.
Because theoretically, we'll get this every year, it's subject to appropriation.
What is the plan for covering the extra 100,000 in choice tuition assessment?
That we probably will talk about next meeting, or probably the next meeting when we talk about the fiscal 15 budget adjustment article for the
Yeah,
warrant.
because this doesn't come out of education, right? Our educational budget?
It does not.
Because it's on the cherry
So
sheet.
it's on the cherry sheet, so it's just money that we never get. It's the old circular thing, we'll give you this, but we take back. I'm certainly for the way you've approached this, and wait to hear from the superintendent and the school committee about what they have that could fit that bill.
So the other thing I wanted to pass out just is another copy of the schedule for the milestones to annual town meeting. There haven't been any changes to this since you saw it the last time, but we are getting close to when things get very hectic. The warrant will remain open until Monday, March 23rd at 4 p.m. That's next Monday. Next Tuesday at your meeting, you will have a full listing of the articles that have been submitted, and you really will need to put some time into ordering the warrant at that meeting.
Well, Generally, the chair, I work with you on ordering it. In the past, at least, that's historically the way it's gone.
Typically, you will have seen a draft of the articles for several meetings before you vote the final. But the articles are just not coming in as quickly as they have in the charter, I don't know now if it's the charter or the bylaw, requires that the warrant stay open until 42 days before annual town meeting. That makes it very difficult when things come in, especially at the last minute, to have, to put the warrant together, to have town council review all of the articles, because, we have to have, the warrant has to be in the hands of the voters 2 weeks before the meeting. We use a printer. We don't print this in-house, so between the time the printer has it and the post office has it, that's about 8 to 10 days. So we have, about 10 or 12 days tops, counting Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to put all of this together.
Is it really hard to change the charter? Because that seems unreasonable.
Well, the charter is up for review once every 10 years. I would recommend, when it comes up, that be something that people look at, because it is tough. It's tough for the Finance Committee to have, they have their public hearing on the 26th. The warrant is open till the 23rd. Their public hearing is the 26th. If there were any petition articles that were submitted last minute that have a financial impact, it's very difficult for the Finance Committee to have a hearing. It's very difficult to try to incorporate any funding for any petition article within the budget because of the timing.
I think the reality is that if somebody's going to do something at the last minute, they're probably not going to get it because of the money, and the more they give information ahead of time, the better. But certainly if we could close the warrant, 50 days before the town meeting, then that gives more time for us to prepare. So,
Right.
Well, in the past also, I would say this is kind of an unusual year, because usually in the past, although we haven't seen final warrant articles, we've seen warrant articles going up till now, and we haven't seen those.
I know the sewer commission is meeting tonight, and they're going to have their sewer budget. They're talking about Pleasant View. They received their 2/3 vote of the residents to go forward with that. 2 stabilization funds for infill and inflow and infiltration, I&I, and capacity to set those monies aside in there. So those will be coming. Then the village district bylaw and the other things. I don't know if we're really going to have a lot. So
Right, in the APG.
it might not be a big town meeting. The planning board, I think, has housekeeping articles.
Housekeeping articles, right.
Yeah. The planning board, I did get a list of theirs today. They have 12, but many of them are housekeeping. And I did get one from the sewer commission, and then we have our standard articles.
So I think, if it does require a charter review, it's not a simple task. You need a whole charter review committee. You can't, nobody, not even the Board of Selectmen, can just propose a charter change. It has to come from a charter review committee that puts out a charter review report that gets voted on. So, but if, in the interim, I think that next year, and anything that's coming from boards and committees, if we can't change when the warrant closes, we can certainly say, hey, from all the boards and commissions, you got to have it in by this day. You can make tweaks to the language a little bit, but you really got to have something before us to start reviewing, because it's kind of done serially, and it shouldn't be. It should be done in parallel. As people get things done, they should come and flow their way through the process, whoever has to make recommendations.
But it does, we still have time to review it and discuss it. It's just we will have a lot of articles that we will say recommendation will be made at town meeting.
Which I've always
prefer not to.
Right, prefer not to, because then it doesn't give anybody any guidance.
Any information.
In advance. If everybody approves everything, I'm not saying people shouldn't come to town meeting. Of course, they should come to town meeting, because you never know what's going to come up. But, there are things that when we started printing, whether the vote was unanimous, both for the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, that indicates to people there's something a little more contentious, because, let's face it, some people don't have enough time to get into the weeds on every single article.
So we could help by just having the committees and boards have their information to us earlier.
Right. So, okay, but that's what we have to work with this year. It's still very workable. We'll just have to do a lot of cram reading. So as soon as we can get the list of the warrant articles, so we can read up for that March 24th, well, that's next week.
Next
Yeah.
week, right, so next week you'll.
So as soon as you have them, what is it? It closes Monday.
4
Oh,
o'clock
geez.
Monday.
So if we can get them by 4:02, that'd be perfect.
Maybe it's 4:05.
All right, 4:05.
Now that you've got your executive assistant, yeah.
That's right. Okay. Anything else about the FY16 budget?
No.
Anything else from the board on the FY16 budget? Okay. Minutes. Warrants. Accounts payable in the amount of $275,850.44. Thanks. Hell of a bill. Action file issues. We have a proclamation for a resident who is achieving his Eagle Scout honors. Mr. Toll will be our representative at this meeting this Saturday, and the proclamation is here. I don't want to read it out loud because it'll be read at the Court of Honor on Saturday. Committee reports. Board of Health.
No report?
Building reuse.
We are scheduled for a meeting tomorrow evening. We're struggling with a quorum. I would advise any member of the public that was planning on coming to check and make sure it didn't get canceled.
Okay. Capital planning, no
No
meeting.
report.
Finance committee.
Last week, they reviewed the Department of Public Works and Monty Tech, and this coming Thursday is the last review. It will be the public access cable, the sewer, and any other moneyed warrant articles.
I want to thank both the DPW director and the Monty Tech personnel who came, and they did an excellent job, both parties, at presenting their budgets. And in the case of Monty Tech, when you come into a school budget, the formulas and how things are assessed for our own schools is tough enough to follow. When you have to discuss it for a multi-town regional district, it's always tricky, but they do it. The woman who does it does a great job every year in explaining that and how our assessments go and what our attendance is and how all of those pieces tie together. And I think they've done an excellent job over the years, really, through tough fiscal times that we've all faced, so.
And it's a wonderful school.
It is.
It's great that we're part of that district.
Library Board of Trustees,
They're meeting on Thursday?
MPO.
The meeting of the MPO on Wednesday, the 11th, there were some important things that were discussed. First off, there was an amendment proposed to the TIP, to the Transportation Improvement Program for 2015-2018. And basically, it's because was a full bridge replacement in Lancaster that was proposed for $3.4 million. And that money has already been obligated, and it doesn't actually need to be programmed in the TIP. So that amendment is now out for public comment. But that will mean that there will be $3.4 million available for bridges in the area. So that is an amendment that's proposed and is released right now for 30-day public comment. We began discussing the schedule for development of the fiscal 2016-2019 TIP, and the hope is to endorse that in June. One of the things that came up is, I had mentioned last year, when we look at the tip, basically we get a table of all the projects, but it doesn't really give an in-depth report of what those projects are and why the funds are needed. So this year, they are starting to look at projects that are scheduled, and one of the projects they want to have an explanation on is the Summer Street project. So I did alert Jack and Kerry about that, and I know Jack has informed Trish Jomigan, the engineer who's working on the project, that she needs to be prepared to attend the MPO meeting on April 8th to give an overview of that project. There are 4 projects right now that are scheduled to come in and give presentations. One of them is another important project that DOT is very concerned about the current schedule. Right now, it's programmed in the 2018 tip, and it's the intersection improvements at Route 12 and Chocksett Road. And apparently, there have been a number of fatalities there, so they are very interested in moving that project forward. So it is going to be a competitive tip. There are a number of other projects that have been identified that were previously in the appendix, but that are now at 75% design. So whether or not, it's all going to depend on where we are in the phase of the design, how fast the project is progressing, whether or not we expect to meet that timetable. One of the issues the Summer Street project is going to face is we are using all of the program funds for the year for that project because of the cost of the project. So, again, it is a competitive process. One of the questions that was outstanding on that, and on the project, and I want to get a clarification from Trish on this, is that it was questionable whether or not the Summer Street project is HSIP eligible, meaning is it a highway safety improvement program? It doesn't meet the guidelines of the highway safety improvement program, and I'm not sure where that was left. I know that was the question that Montechusett was questioning, so we need to get clarification on that before the April 8th meeting. Another interesting thing that was presented was they're working on the Unified Planning Work Program, and they're looking to do a June endorsement on that. And basically, that's a program that identifies planning work that needs to be done in the community, in member communities. And if Lunenburg has projects that we could submit, we should do so. Right now, there are 2 projects that have been submitted. And for an example, Gardner, they're looking at some parking issues, and they're looking at traffic flow patterns, and that's going to be done under the Unified Planning Work Program. Harvard is doing another program to look at complete streets. So, definitely something we want to alert the planning board about, and see if there are projects that they're interested in having Montechusett look at, because there is funding available under the UPWP. Regional Transportation Plan update, they are working on the drafts, and they hope to have that plan completed in May and June. And the next meeting of the MPO is on April 8th.
I just have a question on Summer Street. The Nashua River that goes under, is that a bridge on Summer Street, or is that a culvert? Baker Brook.
Is it a bridge?
So there's the...
Does that bridge have to be replaced, do you know?
I would imagine so. That was what I was thinking of when you mentioned the...
I would talk to Trish. Trish
Well,
would know.
definitely, if that's the case, because there is funding available under the bridge program.
I would assume Trish Domigan would know that.
Well, she'll know, yeah, I mean, what the status of the bridge, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Planning board.
Not an update, but just a note that the planning board is meeting with the Historical Commission on Thursday night to review the APD, and hopefully we will have a warrant article for the deadline.
Okay. PAC.
Just to point out, as Mr. Alonso mentioned, that we are still looking for 2 members of the PAC, but also that the PAC is looking for volunteers to actually do filming, learn editing, actually get involved in the activities of the PAC itself. So we're looking for 2 sets of volunteers, one to actually be on the committee and one to actually participate in the production.
Do they ever reach out to Fitchburg State?
They do. There's difficulties with students on longevity and the various things like that, and Fitchburg TV program has the same issues with retaining them. So other activities, other programs, of what goes on in the student's life is the issue, but they do reach out to them and the other students.
Yeah, even our own high school, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. School committee.
School committee is meeting tomorrow night at Pasio's. Ms. Spidel will be there with Superintendent Combs to, I guess, going to provide a proposed budget update. And the superintendent's televised budget presentation is going to be April 1st.
School building committee met last Wednesday, so we got an update on the status of the building project itself. One building is enclosed and heated, and that's the building they're pursuing. Like I said at the beginning, during announcements, the concrete pour will be done. This is anticipated because of the changing weather, will be the only building that will be put under tarp and heated, because it takes a lot of energy to heat those, to keep the concrete and everything workable, as well as the environment for the workers workable. But the steel erection has continued. They did have a topping off of the steel work, so almost all of that is completed and should be completed by the end of next week, I believe. There will be a ceremonial topping off. There are 2 steel beams that will be placed at the top of the elevator shaft. They will be used for a ceremony it will be sometime in April, and we're working with Shawmut and everybody else in the schools, because what we want to do is put the girders down so all the students who will be attending the first 2 years, or everybody in the middle school and the 1 year in the current high school that will be graduating from there, so they're going to have everybody on their signatures, and then they're going to put it in place while everybody watches. We're working out the logistics, but that'll be a fun. And then we're going to have a flyover of aerial that day too, because once the building is enclosed, the aerial shots won't really show very much until the final landscaping is done. So right now you see a big difference in that. It shouldn't come as no surprise that given the weather, there are certainly delays on where they thought they would be in the schedule. Obviously, they planned for winter. They didn't plan for this winter. So there's approximately they're 4 weeks behind on some areas, but because of the length of the project, they're not anticipating, at least at this point, any overtime work or weekend work. They're going to try to fit in and work the trades in more parallel, so we can make up the work, and they think that they should be able to do that with the 4 weeks, barring anything unforeseen. The site work being all done and the land being good as soon as it thaws, and they've been doing snow removal at the site, so they will be able to, they have been able to resume basically a normal schedule again. That is where we are with that. We are preparing, although it is not yet submitted, with the architect, they're preparing all the furnishing and all the, everything non-building oriented that is going into the building. So all furniture choices, electronic, I can't remember the 3 categories, but that's all being prepared as a checklist with the 2 principals, and that will be submitted later on in the year, but it is being talked about, and that list of items that will be needed and the possible selections and lead times will be done starting probably late spring, early summer. And that is the full report. I'm just trying to remember if there's anything else. No, I think that is it. Sewer Commission.
Sewer Commission is meeting tonight. As I mentioned the last time I talked about the sewer, they have gone out to bid for the Pratt Street Lakeview area sewer extension. They're planning a bid opening April 15th, awarding May 22nd, with a notice to proceed of June 5th. So this summer, in the ground, late June, early July for that area of town.
How long will the project take, do they foresee?
I believe they will finish and connect during the year, but I think the job is not done until the next year because they allow the pavement to complete
Right.
and they allow it to settle.
Right, okay.
So I believe that's the case. As I mentioned earlier, Pleasant View Avenue, the neighbors had petitioned to have the sewer extension, which was part of the original plan, and they received the two-thirds required residents to sign off on it. So they'll be presenting an article for about $300,000 to borrow for that sewer extension, with the understanding that that will be paid back through betterments by the residents and no cost to the town. And I mentioned the other articles, reserve capacity fee stabilization fund, inflow and infiltration fee stabilization fund, money that is paid by people connecting to the system, and instead of having it go into the sewer commission's general fund, they want to have two stabilization funds to provide funds for future needs for those capacity. And that's it for sewer.
Excellent. Town manager reports.
Just one item. Several meetings ago, I had mentioned that I had hoped to have a meeting of this board and the Library Board of Trustees to present the information on the boiler so that everybody could hear it at the same time. We're ready to move forward with that, and we're looking for a time to schedule. The scheduling is a little difficult because next week you already have a 6 o'clock start time for this meeting. The following week is the volunteer appreciation. We also have some limitations with some staff members that we would like to have attend the meeting that have some special limitations, so it would be difficult to do something late in the evening. So I will be proposing something within sometime this week on when we could meet. There was a request to consider meeting during the day, and I know that's difficult, if not impossible, for some of you. But we'll just have to see how creative we can be. Because I think we'd like to have a decision about how to proceed shortly, certainly before town meeting. There's a potential request to maybe reallocate some capital monies, so I'd like to have the meeting before too long.
Is this executive session?
No, it's not executive
Okay.
session, it's just trying to schedule a time.
Why couldn't we do it next week? Even if we have we have a 6 o'clock executive
6.
session, but then why couldn't we meet with them? I mean, what do we have on our agenda? I mean, maybe you and I should go review what we have on our agenda,
Yeah.
aside from the review of the town meeting articles.
It would be easier for at least one of the staff members that needs to be at the meeting.
Okay.
To be earlier rather than later.
Okay.
So would the first meeting in April be too late?
I'd rather do it before then, so we'll have to see what we can do. I haven't even talked to the library director about the availability of the trustees, so I just wanted to let you know I'm going to be bugging you about that meeting.
I did want to bring up something. I should have brought it up after Mrs. Bertram's MPO, but it has nothing to do directly with Lunenburg, but it affects a lot of Lunenburg residents, and since we're talking about, monies in the MPO, I don't know what we need to do, but I don't know if anybody here has ridden Pioneer Drive to go to the Target. That is not, I would consider that not even a road anymore. I mean, it is in from the Lunenburg town line until about a quarter of a mile, maybe a little less than a quarter of a mile, into Fitchburg, into Leominster. That road is non-existent. I mean, it's an incomplete failure, and somebody's going to, A, damage their car, B, get into an accident, because all there are, the southbound lane is just, it's really just mortar-fired, pockmarked. I mean, it's completely failing. So I don't know what we need to do. Can we send something, alert somebody to the DPW of Leominster that really this is now a safety issue because people are actually actively veering into the other lane.
Yes.
To not hit foot-deep potholes, and many of them.
There was a similar situation at Walmart. I don't know if anyone going
Yes.
up into Hannaford, and they put the metal plates down.
But that's private property.
Right,
And-
right.
But I actually believe that the road that's not fixed is private.
I believe it's private as well.
So Pioneer Drive went to where the pavement ends on the Leominster side, and then the other road was going to be, I believe, Brown Ave, an extension of Brown Ave, which is a dead-end street in Leominster, off of Leominster Shirley Road in Leominster. And I believe that there was some controversy with the neighbors to not do it, so they didn't complete the entire circuit. But in essence, under road law, if you don't have a sign that says it's private,
Right.
it's presumed to be public.
That's right.
I recommended to the DPW that we send it to the mayor of Leominster,
That's fine.
executive boards to executive, and that say that, there's,
It is a hazard to people's property
it really
and
is.
life, because, that, and I think even if it is on paper private, I think, number one, it's not signed as such, and number two, it's de facto not a private road.
Right.
Because nobody lets, nobody lets people drive any time of the night with no restrictions on a private road to connect two public roads.
and it's to Leominster's advantage because of the development that's over there, Target, and
Right.
the restaurants, that more people can use it, so.
So I just wanted to note that. And okay, so interviews and appointments. So we have we have an item called the ratify of reappointment of the animal inspector, Kathleen Como, term from May 1st, 2015 to April 30th, 2016.
So under the category of trying to get appointments correct, you previously, July 1st, ratified the appointment of the animal inspector for the term of July 1st through June 30. This appointment under state law is actually May 1 to April 30. And this is a position, this is not animal control officer, this is animal inspector. I did include in the packet the duties of the animal inspector, but they are generally dealing with issues with rabies control, doing barn inspections, checking the ear tag of out-of-state cattle coming into Lunenburg, and other duties as assigned. This is somebody who has to have very specific knowledge and experience. For the past several years, our animal control officer has also served as the inspector of animals. She is interested in continuing in that position, and you did already ratify part of the term, but we need to get this on a May 1 to April 30 timetable. This is a stipend position. It's a $600 stipend in the fiscal 15 budget for this position.
I have two questions. One is, so this would be the position for which wild animals would be, if the police called or a resident called, because I think that there have been times when the animal control officer said, I don't do wild animals, but that might be true for animal inspection, animal control, as opposed to inspector of animals.
Inspector of animals, I believe these are livestock domesticated.
Well, it also
animals.
says
It does say rabies control. so-
urban wildlife such as raccoons, skunks, and bat. That may relate more to rabies.
Yeah, because that talks about knowledge and experience with common urban wildlife will prove beneficial.
My second question is, in related to this, is where are we with the concept of regional animal control?
Well, it's with MRPC. As you know, we received a grant for them to do a study, and I don't have anything back from them. It has been a long time. It is a fiscal 15 project for them. I certainly can ask them where they are, but I haven't had any update for several months. You probably know they've undergone quite a transformation over there, but I certainly can ask where they are.
Do we know how many calls for the animal inspector we get in Lunenburg? Is there any?
I don't know off the top of my head. The barn inspections are done twice a year, and that's the bulk of the work.
Okay.
And do we have a good census of the domestic animal population?
I think we do.
Okay. I'd be interested in seeing that and seeing a report on the inspections. I remain concerned about the current incumbent, and that I really think that we should be going for the regional as soon as possible.
Any other comments, concerns concerning this nomination? Would anybody like to make a motion concerning this nomination?
Well, is there a need to make the nomination tonight? I mean,
The request is for you to ratify the appointment.
And what are we ratifying?
My appointment of Kathleen
It's your
Como
appointment.
as the animal
Your
inspector of
nomination.
animals.
It says that this form is due back on April 1st, correct?
Yes.
So we actually have one
Okay.
more meeting,
okay,
but you can only delay it so long, so if you're
Right,
going to learn
right.
something
right.
incredible
I-
in a week.
I don't have another candidate or another qualified person to fill this role that I know of.
Do these duties, I mean, it would seem these duties naturally go together with the animal control officer. Would they be part of the scope of what MRP is looking at?
Not necessarily. I think you could find somebody who could do both, but they're not necessarily looking at
Yeah,
this.
the big thing about the animal control officer is that you have to have a place to place wayward animals.
I understand. I guess my question was more towards if we regionalize animal control, do we still have to appoint somebody to do this?
You would still have to
Yeah.
appoint
Right.
somebody. It may be that
Maybe,
person.
maybe through the same group, but
Right.
yes, you'd still have another appointment.
Exactly.
Right. The position has to be filled. This is looks like a state required position.
If you house animals in a barn, do you have to let the town know? I mean, how
For
do
a
you...
license, I think,
There are state licensing requirements, and the inspector of animals is inspecting to ensure that those requirements are met.
right. I think you have to show that you have adequate space for the animals. You have to show that you have adequate shelter for the animals. You can't just say, okay, now I have a horse, now I have a cow.
When we had the situation where the state came in to inspect one of the barns because there was some animals that were injured, what agency came in? Was that MSPCA, or was it at the Farm Bureau, or?
That was at the request of the animal inspector,
Okay.
and I believe it was the MSPCA that came
Okay.
in. There's a second agency that she works with as well.
Okay.
I would make a motion to ratify the appointment of the Inspector of Animals, Kathleen Como, for a term from May 1st to 2015 to April 30th, 2016.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No?
4-1.
And if we can get an update on the regional animal control?
Okay, that is the end of our agenda. We have another meeting next Tuesday. We have a 6 o'clock executive session, followed by our normal 7 o'clock televised session. One of the things when Mrs. Bertram was talking about the MPO and bridges, we do have to make I don't think we as a board made any final determination about the final decision of Holman Street and the Holman Bridge. We have delayed it, saying that, right now, we have no interest in rebuilding that, but I think we should make a final determination at some point so that it's not lingering out there forever.
When we have that discussion, I would agree. During the discussions on the Lane property, a citizen mentioned during a Conservation Commission meeting that there has been they happen to live on this road, and there have been a number of problems with large trucks going down Holman Street and then not being able to turn around
Well-
because they don't realize that it's not a through road until they get onto the road, well into the road on one end. So if we do make a decision to permanently close it, we have to do some better signage, I think.
Well, it's not signage, too. I made the point, and I am I'm for listening to the residents and not reopening it. It would be costly, and it clearly never was designed to be the cut-through between 13 and the center of town like it's used. But not only for people who make wrong turns and have to turn around, but also for our own emergency vehicles. I want to make sure that at the end, there is some kind of cul-de-sac or turnaround so that people can correct. You know, you have a huge vehicle, that you're not stuck on a 2-lane country road trying to back up and do a 37-point turn.
And apparently that's happened with some very large vehicles.
Right,
So I
So if
think
they're
we
coming from
definitely have to
Townsend,
look
there's
at that.
certainly a lot of signage
Right.
up there. I don't know
Right.
about the other way.
So we really have to look at that
So,
road.
but I think we have to make a final determination. I think it's proper at this point to do that, so. Any final public comment from members of the board? Any final public comment from the public? Well, enjoy the rest of your St. Patrick's Day, everyone, and we will see you next week. Have a good evening.
Motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? I didn't think so. Now I'll say goodnight.
So